Ryan, quais foram as suas maiores dificuldades, ou se tem alguma até hoje, na profissão de juiz de drift?
Judging drifting at the Formula Drift level is becoming extremely difficult. It's something that has only really become an issue in the last 2 to 3 years, I would say. The drivers now today are driving rocket ships. These cars they're like 9-second drag racing cars, but they go sideways. So the amount of power, grip, ability that they have compared to, let's say, even 5, 6, 7 years ago, it's this exponential growth that has made judging really, really difficult. And I'll explain why. The series used to be, so when I started in 2011 up until about 2016 maybe, when we were looking at a top 16 or a top 32 battle ladder, you could look at each battle pairing and say, I can't say for sure because you never know what's going to happen, but if everything goes as it normally goes, I think driver B is going to win because, well, that driver is just that good and the other driver maybe isn't that good.
I see what you mean.
And you could do that in probably the first round, second round of competition, and then by the third round, it would get a little bit more complicated because some of the better drivers would start to meet up with one another. But that all changed, I'd say like 2015, 2016. Things started to get a lot more complex. And in the last few years, it's become impossible to know who's going to win ahead of time. You can't make any guesses anymore because everybody is so good now. So that's the first level of difficulty. The second level of difficulty is the cars are moving so fast and the chase drivers are so close to the lead drivers now that there's zero room for error. Let's say 5, 6 years ago, the cars weren't as close through an entire run as they are today. So back then, there was room for the lead driver to make errors. The lead driver could, maybe grab a handbrake where they're not supposed to, or go a little bit offline and then get back online. But the chase car was so far away that it didn't really matter as much. That error, that mistake, wouldn't come into play as much. But today, the cars are inches apart for the entirety of the run. So if the lead driver makes a small correction somewhere, it's going to have a big impact on the chase car. And then it comes down to trying to find fault for the contact or the collision that occurred after that correction was made. And the decel map has tried, we've tried to fix things with the decel map. We've tried to make that decel map work for us. But now the decel map needs to be so finite. It needs to be so tight. And if anybody does a movement just outside of that decel map area, then it becomes an issue. And even people making decelerations inside the decel map zone is still a problem. So without data from the cars, such as speed, or maybe like an in-car camera. So if you've got people's hands on the steering wheel, if you watch them turn the wheel real hard, you'll know, oh, that driver did that input. Or if you see a handbrake pull, then you could say, oh, that driver made that input. But at the moment, we don't have that type of information. So it's very difficult for us to know what the intention of a driver was behind the wheel of the car. We're not in the car and we can't see what they're doing. All we see is the effect on the outside. And sometimes even the effect is hard to catch because these cars are moving so fast. So today, it's very, very difficult to make a sure and certain call when something happens on the track, like a collision, maybe a decel that caused the chase driver to make an error. So whose fault is that? Tire drops off the track. Sometimes the camera angles aren't perfect. But these are all things that are so vital today to deciding who wins a battle that it makes the job of a judge very difficult. And then, of course, you have the repercussions of a call. We all know that when a call is made, one person's going to be happy and the other person isn't. So no matter which way
Always,
the call goes,
always, yeah.
Yeah, so it's trying to make sure that your call is correct so that you have all of the backing information to say that I made the call because of this and I believe the call is right because of this. But if you don't have that information, it's really hard to back up your call, and then you've got a situation where drivers are making protests, and then you have to prove your side in front of them, and it becomes really difficult when, like I said, the cars are so close, going so fast, and driving at such a high level of competency that those little errors are hard to catch, and they're also hard to enforce as well. So those are the challenges that we face today. And I think the only way that it's going to be alleviated really is with more information from the cars, whether that be speed or an in-car camera or a kind of decel computation that would have to be made by a computer. You know, you'd have to program it to say, yes, there was a decel there that's bigger than what you generally allow. So a lot of those things become a challenge because it's a financial issue. The in-car cameras are easy to set up. It's getting them to transmit live to us that's very expensive. We see this in Formula One and WRC. We see it in NASCAR, but they're playing with very big budgets. You know, hundreds of thousands of dollars per event are needed just to get that camera view to us live and to the fans live. So a lot of issues, a lot of roadblocks, if you will, to getting that information to us.
Yeah, and as you know, I'm always watching FD live on YouTube and making my personal calls on, and we sometimes we talk to each other to see what's going on. I remember we trying to figure out, like 2, maybe 3 years ago, we talked about the in-car cameras and about the budget. I remember we talking about that, and I agree 100% with you. It's like sometimes people don't even know because they don't have that eye, that clinical eye for judging. I mean, because we were training for that, right? So the calls are getting so close that I think today, I mean, in 2021, I don't think a lot of calls that I've seen going on in FD would be impossible without the drone or without the instant replay with the side-by-side car videos. It would be impossible. So yeah, it's something that's it's getting by the inches, right? Like
It is.
And I have a second question on that. You feel that FD is doing in FD the drivers are getting that in that level, and maybe in other countries like in Brazil or maybe Russia, it's like you said, it was back in the day in FD when cars were kind of far apart and you can see better, not better, but see easier what the mistakes and what the goals are.
Yeah, if you look at series like the Russian Drift series, or if you look at Drift Masters, let's say, they have allocated a lot more money, and I believe it's because of the sponsors that they've managed to acquire, especially Drift Masters, because Drift Masters has Red Bull right now. The Red Bull Media House is taking a huge step in Europe to provide a lot of the technology that's needed for, I think, the ideal judging environment.
Super precise judging, yeah.
Yeah, they have this system where the judges have control over the replays. So they have their own, I don't even know what it's called. It's like this unit that has all of the controls for fast forward, rewind, pause. So they can go through a video very slowly, forward or backwards, and they can analyze the video themselves up in the booth really quickly and easily. So that's the first thing that really helps. The second thing is they have the budget given by Red Bull to bring in all of the Red Bull Media House trucks, cameras, and crew. And that gives them the ability to live stream in-car cameras to the judges and to the fans live.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's huge. That's a big step. But it takes a huge sponsor like that with the technical know-how and all of the technology to make that viable. And unfortunately, in Formula Drift, we just haven't acquired that media partner that can do that. or a sponsor that can pay for somebody like that to come over and do that. And it comes down to the sponsorship. I think if you find a company, you have to find a company that's willing, and you have to find a company that has the budget to do that. And I just don't think in the US that it has gotten to the point where a sponsor would want to provide that yet. In Europe, drifting is, I think, more commonplace, let's say, like amongst motorsports fans. And let's face it, in Europe, they do have a different style of motorsport.
I agree.
What would you call it? Like
more
fan base, let's say. And their interest level on the side of Red Bull is such that they think it's a viable thing to sponsor. And I'm not sure what it would take in the US to acquire that, but even in the Russian Drift Series, they have a great replay system as well. They've also implemented drones, and they've done it to great success. Now in Formula Drift, our drones are phenomenal. We have great drone views as well, but it still can't give that complexity, like the little intricacies that you see from, if we had a camera just over the driver's shoulder showing everything that they're doing, I think that's what would be ideal. But it's hopefully something that will come in the future. But of course, that would probably come with its challenges as well.
Of course,
I'm sitting here saying this is
more tech. More tech.
Ideal,
More tech is all, sometimes more problems.
More scrutiny, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I think you guys would have to get rid of NASCAR, and then maybe that will work.
Essa é a maior dificuldade deles, né? O julgamento, né?
Sim.
Os pilotos, querendo ou não, estão ficando muito parelhos mesmo.
Muito.
É no pelo, né?
É no pelo, tem que criar regra nova, e isso acaba acompanhando com ele, né? Junto.